to the Good Girl Confessional. I am your host, Sandy Lowries, and the Good Girl Confessional is brought to you by WB40 or Women Beyond 40 magazine. Today in the confessional, we have a really lovely guest. Her name is Shirley Billson. She is based in the UK, and Shirley is a menopause anxiety coach. If you're a woman who is going through perimenopause or menopause in the workforce, you're finding it difficult, she may be just the remedy that you need. She is vibrant, brilliant, dynamic, and she is paving the way, just like WB40, to shine a spotlight on the issues that really matter most to women in this age demographic, one of which is menopause. Please welcome to the confessional, Shirley Billson. Hello, Shirley, and welcome to the confessional. How are you?
I'm really great, thank you, Sandy. It's so nice to be with you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and the last time we chatted, I was on your podcast, Rebellation, and it's really lovely now to have you in the confessional on the other side of the microphone.
I just love that it's called a confessional. I'm not so sure about the good girl bit because, and I don't think I've ever felt I fitted into that category, but hey, I'll go with the confessional.
They're the kind of people we like. So for anyone listening who doesn't know, the Good Girl Confessional name is a nod to the patriarchal and societal views that are put on women, that we are meant to be good girls, and quite often we are not. So,
absolutely.
So that's why you're our kind of person, Shirley.
Yay.
So I promise I won't make you confess too much, but really what we're all about and why I'm so thrilled that you joined us is that we love to share the hard-won wisdom of women. And you're a woman who's got a lot of wisdom to share.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sometimes, we were chatting earlier and I was saying that I drop far too easily into that self-deprecating space, which is so common for women generally, certainly women in the UK, and I don't know about in Oz, whether you perhaps are more powerful, but it's a bad habit, and it's hard to shake. So, yes, I'm wise. I will be sharing wisdom.
And I love that people have this kind of view. It's really interesting when I have guests from overseas, on the podcast, that they do have this view that Australian women are really strong and tough, and I think what's really fascinating is as an Australian, we tend to think that about other, people from other countries as well. But I think this happens to be a global thing. I think women in general are taught to be quiet, submissive, to not, bang our own drum. And I think, that's global. I don't think any of us can escape it, Shirley.
I think you're right. I think, there might be some rare exceptions. I think Nigerian women are pretty damn tough. But they may say otherwise. But you're right. It is pretty global. This is such the right place for me, because one of the things that I really feel about, people get locked into this, because my thing is menopause anxiety, and people get locked into this space of siloing conversations, and I think that's what we do a lot as women, and we kind of get swept along in it and think like we're in control of it, but actually I still feel that siloing of conversations is us fitting into a structure that isn't really designed for us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So menopause
does.
becomes, let's have a menopause conversation over here, and let's have a hormonal conversation over here, and let's have a women in work conversation over here. And it's like, F that, let's just have a conversation about changing the whole damn bloody structure of society, because we didn't make the rules. We're just still, and that's why this good girl thing is so brilliant, we're still trying to fit in, even when we're arguing and saying that's not what we want. Oh.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. That's so brilliant, Shirley, because it's so A bloody true. And that's the thing. And on this podcast, by the way, if you feel the need to swear, please do. It's
Oh, thank you.
100% fine.
Thank you.
But yeah, you're right. I think that we've been, so taught, and especially Anglo women, we're so taught to be submissive. Shut up, be quiet, know your place, all the bullshit. But you're right. There isn't really enough holistic conversations going on around menopause. And as you say, in the workplace, look, in Australia, and I don't know about the UK, but in Australia, they're trying to move to policies in the workplace that support women in menopause. But the big issue is that women going through menopause don't want to talk about that in the workplace because A, it highlights their age, and there's already ageism present, and B, it gives an organisation yet another excuse to denigrate a woman and her performance.
Exactly. And I probably go against the grain with the whole let's have a menopause policy. I'm not saying, carry on as we are, but I don't want a policy about a specific stage in my life. It's this marginalisation. It's putting us in a specific place. And the trouble is, it won't help. It won't help one iota. It'll be like equality. We still haven't really got equality. I think the reason women like you and I have grabbed the metal and gone, I'm just going to do this damn thing myself, is because, frankly, that was the only choice we were given. It's like, we're not wanted elsewhere. We're not valued elsewhere. If we want to do things the way we think they should be done, that this is the only way to do it, is to just go, oh, fine, right, I'm going to do it then. And that takes so much courage and so much strength, and it's wonderful that so many women are doing that. And maybe that is the only way we'll change things. But organisations can't just have little policies for menopausal women. They need to look at the entire structure of their organisation, because women get faced with a couple of choices. As you say, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want more attention focused on their age. But we get persuaded that our only choice is stay and play by the rules, men's rules, that have been in perpetuity. Like, I got to play by the rules I've always had to play by, but they don't fit me anymore because I'm like coming apart at the seams. I'm in a lift shaft that's sinking fast, and there's no bottom to it, and I don't know how to stop it. Or I get off.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the choice that we should be making. It's not the best choice for organisations. It may be the best choice for us, but organisations are the worst for it, and younger women are the worst for it, and younger men are the worst for it. And as you can tell, blimey, have we got enough time on this podcast for me to bang on about it?
Yeah, absolutely we do. And that's why I'm so thrilled that you've joined us, right? Because, I'm out there talking about menopause. A lot of the writers for our magazine are out there talking about menopause. You're here talking about menopause. But I think what I really love about you, Shirley, is that you have positioned yourself, which is brilliant, as a menopause and anxiety coach. And there is a lot of anxiety around, going through perimenopause and menopause, and the fact that younger women don't understand it. But that is I feel like that's part of our responsibility. The more we talk about it, the more we forewarn and forearm our younger sisters who are coming up. Because I've got women who are readers of the magazine, a couple of them who have written, who said, I didn't know this stuff. Like, I didn't, they're 39, one of them's 39. I didn't know, and I'm so glad you're telling me, because, oh my God, this sounds dreadful. And you're like, there's aspects of it that certainly are. It can be crap, but there's aspects of it that we have to kind of really embrace as well. So it's a teachable thing as well. Our parents' generation shut down. They weren't telling us about it. So I almost feel like a responsibility to talk to my daughter, who's only 23, to talk to younger women and say, these things are normal. They are going to happen to you. You can't hold it back. And one day you will be this age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely agree with you. But what I find interesting, and what I'd like to potentially do more of, is not just bring young women into the conversation, but young men too. Because
Oh, yeah.
I spoke at a small event last month before, and the audience was not a group of menopausal women. The audience was, I think maybe there were 2 women who were somewhere in that age group, and the rest of them were men, and from middle age to, there was a guy in his 20s. So, I mean, we're talking about a broad range of people, and a young woman who was also in her 20s. So not a typical group, not preaching to the converted. And I thought, oh, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And I thought, oh, just do what you feel like you've got to do. And I thought, okay. So I went in there and I talked about weird stuff like divine feminine, but not in a fluffy way, just talking about the power that can be menopause, if we can move into that space of it becoming powerful, which we can, but also about that horrendous experience that we can also have. And I got the most phenomenal feedback that I got was not actually from the women in the room, but from the men. The men were blown away, and one actually, he's if you go to LinkedIn, you'll see his testimonial on my page, and he said, I really didn't think this content was going to be for me. Of course he thought that. He's like, I'm not too sure this is for me, but I'll politely sit here and listen. And he just was completely blown away. And another guy, the young guy, felt really connected to it. And as with, I'm such an ardent feminist, but I think we can't be feminists if we persist in thinking we can just play this game on our own. We have to get the men who are on board, and there are a lot of them, to join the bloody party. It's not something we have to do on our own. There are men willing and able and wanting, and not in a they're there, give you a chance way, but in a committed, I want to understand way. And I think that's really important.
And powerful, right? So I think the really interesting thing is that by the time women go through menopause, and it can, for some women, obviously, there can be early onset menopause, but for the most part, women in mid-40s onwards going through menopause, which means generally they have partners in the same age bracket. Now, that's a generalization too. Yeah. But when you have a partner who's in his late 40s, 50s, or even 60s, they come from a generation of men who this was never talked about. I mean, let's face it, women weren't talking about it, so why the hell would they be talking about it with men?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do feel like for a lot of men, there is this, oh, I really fell in love with this amazing woman. Menopause comes and they're like, who the hell is this person I am living with, right? Because it changes us. It is different. And it's difficult for us to comprehend initially. So I think you're right. I think the conversation needs to happen with men. And again, that's a teachable thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, so we've alluded to the whole, the divide between, oh God, it can be an awful journey, but also it can be this incredible gift. And it's really hard for women that are just coming into the, and and your audience know, not all women go through a nightmare. Some women do genuinely, like, what's the big deal? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep, true.
But more than half do know what we're talking about. And that is a big number of women. And to say to them when they're first going through that trauma, when they've stepped into the lift shaft and the mechanism has broken and they're free falling, pressing buttons, and none of the old buttons that used to work are working, to say, this will be a gift. One day you will come out of this and it will be magnificent and beautiful and the sun will shine and rainbows will appear. And they'll go, like, are you effing mad?
Exactly. Get away from me, you crazy person. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, a couple of things so when I gave that talk, the analogy I used then was like, I talked about divine feminine, which I've never talked about before. Like, I'm not someone that talks about divine feminine, but it suddenly felt important, and I thought, oh, we call it Mother Earth, and there's these fault lines in the earth, and sometimes they shift, and the fault lines shift, and there's a frigging earthquake caused by the fact that the fault lines are shifting, but eventually they will settle. And I feel like it's the earth is going, whoa, there's something going on here, and the earth is demonstrating its power, and everything's going to change, and it's really scary. And I feel like there's this analogy with what we have in menopause of tectonic plates moving, and it's powerful, but it's within our power. This is about, I feel, this age, there's something special about our generation, about what's happening right now, that is different to what will come in the future and what came in the past, that is more than just we're talking about stuff. I think there's like a groundswell of change in the world that we are a part of. This is about us finally shifting the whole world dialogue into a place that's driven by feminine divine. In other words, we run the world from a place of thought and care, and I'm not saying, I'm probably one of the most outspoken, in your face kind of non-feminine people you could meet. So I don't mean flowery dresses and la la la, making daisy chains, nothing wrong with that, but real, like, what matters to us. Women care about stuff, and it's not that men don't, but men will switch it off to get the job done, and women will switch it off to get the job done, but there'll always be that inner part of us that we could get good at hiding. We talked about hiding earlier. That eventually the tectonic plates shift, and we go, oh, that part, so there's the bit that was hiding, and now there's the bit that's exposed, which is that sensitive underbelly. And I think it's like the whole world needs us to do this, and it's painful, and we're struggling, and we're finding it hard. But we, I think, are the only people that can save this damn planet and society and organisational structures and governments and whatnot. And that's a big thing I've just said, so I'll just let that land.
I'm just going to clap. I think this is a really amazing thing, and this has come up a number of times in a few podcasts that I've done with women who are very much in touch with what is going on in the universe, if you like, because, and clearly you're one of them. What's really fascinating is we are, and everything you've said is 100% true, we are living in the groundswell of the Me Too movement. We are seeing extraordinary change happen, and not just women over 40, 50, 60. What we are seeing is young people like, Greta Thunberg, and like there's a whole number of people, like incredible Malalia, like, you know what I mean? Like we are bearing witness to an extraordinary generation of women coming up. Here in Australia, we're seeing, huge change happening. Women took to the streets here to march for justice for some young women who were brave enough to come forward and say that they had been sexually assaulted in the Houses of Parliament, while doing their job. It was it just was instantaneous and incredible, and it happened, and women took to the streets here. Women have taken to the streets all over the world, and we're watching what's going on currently, say in Texas, where they are all but, reversing Roe versus Wade, and this kind of like breaking down the autonomy for women over their own bodies. I think what's really fascinating is you're right, 100% right. There is a united front. The voices are getting louder. We're seeing people like Kamala Harris saying, I am speaking, right? We're watching, the misogyny speech by Julia Gillard here in Australia. We've seen all of these things happen. But it's at the grassroots level with people like you and I and our listeners and, our readers and whatever, everyday brilliant kick-ass women who are taking up that gauntlet as well. And they are speaking, and they are calling out crap, and they are getting more political, and they're starting to understand that the world needs them.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, and you name some of those people there, and you think, oh God, well, you know, I'm kind of awed. I would be awed in their presence, and I feel like I don't have their courage. But we all have our own version of courage, and to come back to that self-deprecating thing, going, oh yeah, but I can't do this or I can't do that. You know, we have amazing courage. We have courage that we don't acknowledge. You know, we've had courage our entire lives to just get up and do things when we know they're not right, they don't sit comfortably with us. You know, I think women have a quiet courage. You know, we miss, you know, this comes down to language, which is a big thing of mine as well. We misinterpret what courage is, because courage has been defined by men and driving out and shooting and being, you know, killing people. You know, that's courageous. You know, winning wars. No, you know, we can. And we've been discredited for such a long time by what would be regarded as maybe feminine ways of doing things, like talking about things. But I think it's because it's been misapplied and misappropriated, and our courage is simply to be courageous in our space. We don't have to be Greta Thunberg. You know, it'd be great if we could, but we can't be. But we can do what you and I are doing, and you know, for us, we can, you know, you publish a magazine and I'm just simply being a guest on your podcast. But if we use our courage, then we give courage to other people, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And I think through your work and through your podcast, which is taking a break at the moment, I understand that. But you have a podcast called Rebellation, and you have spoken to some extraordinary people, and you have spread the word about menopause to so many listeners. And that's the thing about you saying, I'm just a guest on your show, but you are far more than that. And you are making change in the world by talking about something that ridiculously has been so taboo, and yet not one woman or one person with, you know, a womb can stop. Like, this is a reality. So, you know, anyone who's got a, you know, womb or whatever, and anyone who's got ovaries, because women do have, you know, obviously they, you know, they can have parts of them removed, and, you know, the reality is for most people with a womb, we will go through menopause. And you were out there on the front line, and you were talking about that on a daily basis, and you are coaching women through that. And that to me is courage. That's courageous.
Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't feel courageous, but it's interesting, because yesterday I was out for a walk, and I was telling you before we jumped on air that this week I've been in a real trough of, you know, verging on depressive, you know, feeling really low, and it was kind of like echoes of when I was going through the worst part of my menopause anxiety. And I thought, oh, you know, I could not do this podcast today. I could go, oh, you know what, Sandra, can we do this another time, you know? Or I could do the thing that we often do and go, no, push on through, just act like it's all okay, even though it's not okay. Or I thought I could just, you know, show up and see what happens. And even like literally an hour before we came on air, I did my usual meditation. And I think this plays a part in the conversation we're having and what's going on with me and what I'm now feeling. So this week I've been meditating on, this sounds crazy, but who I am. Like, I've been meditating on my own name. And I've never ever felt comfortable with my name, like Shirley. Like, who is who is that? I don't feel connected. Never have. Like, and I thought, well, that's really weird. Like, why would you not feel connected with your own name? So I've been meditating on it, and it's really opened up this space where I've almost seen like the essence. And I always talk about this with my clients. You know, my program is called Return to Self. And it's like I knew it without knowing it. And so it's like this core of, I get this, you know, I'm okay, am completely on top of life and the world and secure and safe and all that. But there's this other part that's like, holy shit, like, oh, what the hell? And it was like I was aware of this separation, and my name became symbolic with the separation. And I think that's what's caused me to be in this trough of, I feel discombobulated and low, and I don't know how to deal with this, and oh God, put it back in the box, Shirley. Don't look at it. But then I thought, no, this is what menopause is actually about, and that is how it felt before. It did feel like, oh no, I can't cope, I can't be whatever it is I'm expected to be. I can't pretend that it's okay anymore. I can't. But I allowed that to persuade me that I couldn't do my work anymore, that I had no value anymore. And it would be so easy. Like this week, I was going to put it back in the box, just go back to what you were. And I thought, no, the gap, just ride through this. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just ride through it. This is returning to self on another level. So there's levels where we talked earlier about being on a journey. There's no end to this journey. We're beginning it. But that source of us, our self, is at the centre. And before we hit menopause, we become convinced that the veneer of who we think we have to be is us. And menopause goes, it ain't you. And we go, no, really? And I think that's why we suddenly feel like we can't cope, like we've lost ourselves. We haven't lost ourselves, we're finding ourselves.
Wow, that's a powerful statement, Shirley, and something that, I mean, I feel emotional when you said that, because I think it's a really interesting thing that we do feel so disconnected from ourselves when it's all happening, when it starts to happen. But at the same time, something kind of really universal and beautiful happens when you start talking to your friends about it and they're going through the same journey. There is this, physiological thing that is going on. We can't, that's a reality, and that is part of, regardless of, this is a thing too, and I really need to throw this out there. When women compare themselves, and they shouldn't, compare themselves to, say, celebrities who are 50 and 60, but they look extraordinary, they're still going through menopause. Like, that shit doesn't stop because of how fit you are or how good looking you are or how wealthy you are. That stuff doesn't end. Like, it happens to all of us, right? So that's an important point. But what you're saying is so powerful, because on one hand, we feel like, I don't really know who the hell I am anymore. But on the other hand, you feel like, you know what? I'm strong enough now to say I don't have as many fucks to give. I don't, right? In the words of Helen Mirren, and I say this a lot, but it's true. You just kind of go, I can't be bothered with the bullshit anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And that's powerful in and of itself.
Yeah.
And starting to figure, I'm watching friends, who are in their 50s, 60s, whatever, dating. That's a really interesting premise when they're like, well, this is who I am. Right? And I'm not saying that those insecurities that we all carry, whatever, aren't there, but they're starting to kind of really feel within themselves, this is who I am. Take it, don't take it, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So you're right. There's a power dynamic going on.
Yeah.
It's almost like the shedding of skin. Do you think?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But I think it just feels unnatural to us. And it's totally understandable that why wouldn't you? It is like sitting on the edge of a plane. I've never done this and I don't really want to do it, but I can imagine it. And you thought it was such a good idea to get that parachute on your back and go, yeah, I'll jump out of a plane. And then you're sitting on the edge of it, suddenly thinking, what was I thinking? and wanting to get back on. And I think that's what happens with us in menopause. You think, oh no, I'll go back, but you can't go back. You have to go forwards. And it's interesting you said about, what we see on social media and celebrities and stuff. And I, like a week ago today, I had some lovely brand photography done. So all day last week, this time last week, it was having my makeup done, having my hair done. And I spent a wonderful day with the most incredible photographer taking beautiful photos and making me look $1 million. And I just got a taster of some of those photographs yesterday, and I put a few out. And I've got one on my screen. I can see it right now. And I thought this morning, although, I am all about authenticity, integrity, showing up as who you are, being who I am, not glossing, not like my hair isn't yet quite dry from having washed it earlier, and all of that stuff. And I worked with a photographer who's really good at bringing out personality, but I look at that photo and I thought, I'd like to be her.
Right.
Because there's something about it. It's capturing a moment of, you're putting on your best face, you've got your hair done, you've got your makeup done, you're wearing your favourite clothes, you've got the best photographer, you're smiling because you feel great. But it's just a moment in time, and you aren't always that person. I'm not always that person, and I really want to say that to people, because I'm looking at her thinking, shit, I wish I could be her all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, that is you, but that's not all me. That's just a moment in time.
I think that's a beautiful way to have a conversation too about something that I think about a lot. That photograph, that is you. And she brought out something of you that shines in those photographs, right?
Yeah.
And as women, we can have the most amazing photos taken of ourselves and whatever. On a bad day, you'll still look back at those photos and go, oh, what was I thinking with that? Or why did I put my head on that angle? Or right? I think you're right. We tend to denigrate ourselves. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, though, was that are we not several versions of ourselves? They're all authentic, but who we are can be different on any given day.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And, I can show up on, obviously I have social media, you have social media. I can show up on my social media for the people who are reading my... I mean, look at this. This is the perfect... Look at this. Lockdown nails. Look at them. Because we can't get our nails done. I can't go anywhere. And I'm like, please.
No, of course.
And this is shellac and I can't get it off. Anyway.
You can't get it off.
So it's, I would have thought before the pandemic I would die before I'd go on social media and show that, right? But this is a reality. And so this is the thing. We are all different things on different days, right? So I can show up on a video that I've made for Instagram or whatever one day, no makeup, haven't done my hair, but I've got something to say and I jump on and I do it. I would have other days where I would almost crumble if I did that because I'm, of the headspace that I'm in or how I'm feeling at that time. Yeah. And I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break, as ordinary people that... we're passionate about things and we've got a message and we're out there. But for everyone's got social media now, right? Everyone. And we just need to give ourselves a little bit of a break, that it's okay to be not just on social media, but in life. We hold different masks. We are different people at different times and that's not inauthentic. It's how we are on any given day, right? Yeah, no, I think that's really good to point out. And it makes me realize that, I think, when it comes to visual media, and whether I don't know if this is a female thing or just a me thing, I don't think it's just me. Even though I'm being authentic and like you, I jump on, I don't really worry too much about whether my hair is done or what I'm wearing or, I'm just going to do it. But you're right, I'm not going to do it if I'm really not feeling it. But I feel way more comfortable with doing video now than I ever did. I don't care so much about... okay, just throw a top on, get on. But I interestingly find my podcast, which unlike yours, I know you and we did do a video podcast, but on the whole, most of my podcasts were audio only. And unlike you again, my podcast was not littered with guests. 99% of the time, it was just me. I just pick up a mic, as you said, and I think, I've got something to say, and I'd say it. But I actually felt more comfortable, this is real feminine stuff, isn't it? More comfortable showing up
feeling low, feeling crap, feeling angry, feeling happy, feeling stupid, feeling trivial, feeling serious, on a podcast where there was no visual involved.
Yeah.
When and if anyone, I do have a small group of incredibly loyal listeners, and they will testify to that who you get one day, it's like, oh, which version of Shirley have we got today? Somehow when there's a visual involved, or another person involved, so like I'm feeding off you and you're feeding off me, and it all becomes lovely and it brings out energy. But sometimes when you're on your own, there's nothing to feed on, is there? There's just you and a mic.
I get that.
And I'm glad I did that podcast, because I like to think that in doing that, no matter what, because I did every single day.
Mind-blowing.
That's
mind-blowing.
It gives people permission to go, do you know what? It's okay to show up not being okay. And to go back to where we started this conversation about the workplace that most people are in, we're convinced that it's not okay to not be okay. And it's a mental health issue as well. It's mental health. But frankly, it doesn't matter how much people talk about mental health or menopause, in my view. It really doesn't. It's like equality. It changes very little. It's surface dressing, we're talking about it. That means we're doing it. No.
Right? And we're asking once a year, are you okay? But we're not, right? Where it should be an everyday conversation of reaching out and checking in with people, and you know what I mean? Like, and we need to make it a safe space for people. The thing is, when you go, are you okay? And someone goes, yes, I'm fine.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're probably not bloody fine.
No.
Right? So we need to create safe spaces for people to really open up about how they're feeling.
Yeah. And I don't have the answers to that. And I'm sure, I don't know how you do that.
I don't have the answers either, right?
Because, a part of me, I said to you, I was feeling low before this. I'm not feeling low now, by the way. I've been feeling great since I did my meditation, and thankfully, and talking to you, because the minute I'm talking to you, I'm going, oh no, I'm fine. What was the problem? There was no problem, which is lovely.
But that's a safe space too, because before we chatted about that before we started even recording this, and that I think you knew that and it's true, I would have said, if you're not up to this, 100% fine. We'll do it another time, right? And that's the other thing as well, of having the courage to sort of say, I just don't feel like I can do something today, whether it's work or whether it's whatever it may be, whether it's cooking dinner or whether, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
That sometimes and that's okay to speak your truth.
Yeah. 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 But it's a really tough call when what crushed me when I was going through the severe menopause anxiety of my own was that at that time I was a business coach, which doesn't really sit comfortably for me. So despite the fact I've got a master's in marketing and I've done all that kind of businessy stuff, it didn't really sit comfortably. But when it all started to unravel, I'm unraveling inside, and therefore it became an unraveling on the outside. And I thought I couldn't show up for anybody anywhere. And that meant that, whether I was right or wrong, maybe if I'd allowed myself to show up a bit more with, oh my God, I can't cope, maybe it would have been okay. But I felt like, no, because you're the coach with the answers, and if you don't look like everything's okay, how the hell will anyone want, why would anyone pay you? Why would anyone want to work with you? And there is still that element, like I'm telling people how to return to themselves. Therefore, I need to always show up looking amazing, feeling on top of things. So I felt a little bit uncomfortable. I thought, oh, yeah, sod it. I'm doing it, Yes. And I was going to do, I don't know if this is relevant now, but it's just coming to my head. I was going to do a video, in fact, I probably still will, about how much does this cost conversation. because that's where I felt, the challenge of charging people money if you're not feeling 100%. Like, how do you do that? And it's quite a common question. If you worked in the coaching space as well, Sandy?
Yeah, years ago. Yeah, I was in training and facilitation. Yeah.
So it's quite a common question, and I mean, I don't get asked it all the time. Some people just, like, they know they want to work with me, and it's like they just go, okay, how much is it? Okay, a deep swallow, find out how to do that. But I thought people are asking they're asking the wrong person. They're asking me, how much does it cost? And I'm not being disingenuous when I say this, but actually the person that you want to be asking how much does this cost is you. Because it was only in my own life, it was only when I reached that point of going, okay, you're broke, you're in debt, you're in a minimum wage job, you're on the floor, you don't believe in yourself, you think you're shit, you think you're incapable, you're only, you're not even 60 yet, and oh God, if you live as long as your mother, you've got at least another 33 years, so blimey, really, is this it? And you're going, I don't have enough money to go and get someone to help me through this. I remember thinking, well, you either find some money somehow, because otherwise what is the point of living, genuinely, or you do whatever. I don't know, and I didn't want to do whatever because I didn't like the look of whatever looked like. And so the minute I invested more than I had, thinking, where are you going to get this money from? But it enabled me to get back into a place, really quickly, of running my own life again and going, oh, thank God I did that. And I think that's the cost we don't look at. We go, how much is that? It's not relevant how much that is. It's like, what is it costing you to not get what you need if you need it? And only you can make that decision. And so I don't know why I felt driven.
No, I think it's beautiful that you brought that up, because it is important. How much do you value yourself?
Yeah.
Right? So if someone really wanted to go on a holiday and they didn't have any money, they'd find really innovative ways to make money, whether it's sell things on eBay or whatever it may be, right? But we don't do that to invest in ourselves. And I think that that's 100% true.
Yeah.
I think that's very true.
Yeah.
We don't give ourselves permission. And for some people, money is so important because they don't have a lot of it. So there is a scarcity mindset, and I understand that. I've been a single parent and all those things. But I do think it's really interesting that we, will, work our asses off to save for, say, I don't know, pick anything in your house, a couch, right? But we don't work our asses off and save that money to invest in ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's it really, like, you've blown me away, actually, because now that's got me thinking, because I think I'm guilty of that as well, right? I will spend money on my home. I will spend money on friends. I will spend money on my children. But, it's a weird thing to kind of, and not that I don't buy things for myself, but it's like when it's a big money spend on yourself, there's so many people that shut down and say, oh.
Yeah. Well,
because it comes down to worth, right? What am I worth?
I think you're right. It does. And I genuinely had no money. I was taking home £100 a week in a part-time minimum wage job. I mean, that is not like having lots of money. And I was spending more than half of that to get the help I needed, because I thought, instead of thinking, oh yeah, but I need to put this £100 in, it's like, but that doesn't touch the edges of anything, really. And if that's all I've got for the rest of my life, it's never going to be enough anyway. So I may as well bloody bite the bullet and go, what have I got to lose? Because frankly, it wasn't a lot. And yeah, it is about value. It is about valuing ourselves. We can talk till the cows come home. But I had an interesting conversation on exactly this basis with a client yesterday, who interestingly is a man. So I'm not menopause anxiety coaching him, but he's in that same stage of life, and his wife is just teetering on the edge of menopause anxiety. And obviously he had bitten the bullet and he had invested to work with me. So he, and I think men are better at doing that.
I agree.
They
100%.
they can weigh up okay, so you're offering me this, and they can do that. But nonetheless, what was really interesting in our conversation was that he was in a 6-month program and we're 4.5 months in. And the deal that I do is that people pay half up front. And then I'd said so this was part of the deal with him, half up front and then halfway through. And I said, the deal is like, we're both in this together. So if we get halfway through and you don't feel like you've had the value, or I don't actually like working with you, we part company and I only get paid half and you only pay half. And that's that. So he's 4.5 minutes in, so he's obviously paid the whole thing. And he said to me, like in the last time we spoke, he said, I can't believe how quickly I've reached this level of transformation. I can't believe, he's like enthusing about how far he's come, the difference, and all of that stuff. And then yesterday he said, oh, how many sessions have we got left? And I said, oh, well, we've got a month and a half, but there's only a few sessions because of the way I've stacked it. And he said, oh, I don't really feel the need anymore because I like everything's great. I'm not sure. I don't feel the need for the rest of it. So he said, oh, if there were maybe 7 or so sessions, well, maybe I'd want to talk to you about perhaps a bit of a refund. And I went, I might have gone, I don't think I did, but I might have done. I said, well, just so you know, we wouldn't be talking about a refund. I said, because you got the value. It's not about how, you're not paying for my time. I said, if it took 5 minutes for you to get that result of you transforming your life and feeling like you're in control of it anymore, instead of going mad with an employer that you think is like your head's on fire, it's irrelevant. And I only tell that story to kind of demonstrate the whole, like, we think about, like, when we buy a car, do we go, well, how many windows has it got? How many wheels? Like, oh, it's just stupid. Sorry.
No, I agree. And I think, it's really interesting. We have this amazing woman who's also a friend of mine, but she writes for the magazine. Her name's Achillianis, and she is a career coach. And she goes into that same sort of space of men and women, of getting them to understand, well, they're miserable in their current roles. And she has been an extraordinary help to me over the years. She's one of the very reasons that I eventually had the balls to go, screw this, I'm going to do this magazine myself. I can't find one. And she said, well, why don't you do it? What do you... And I kept saying, I'm going to start a magazine and I'm going to do a podcast. She was like, so why don't you just do it? And then unpacking that. We used to work together. I think it was a really extraordinary thing that she used to just like gently unpack things with me and break it down, right? Yeah. Why I wouldn't do it or why I was afraid to do it. But I agree with you. I think there's so much value in investing in ourselves and allowing ourselves. And I've got several friends who have been in training and facilitation, who are life coaches or health coaches, where what they bring to the table, like yourself, is so valuable. It's valuable, right? Yeah. And so, before we run out of time, though, I do really want you to tell our listeners about this extraordinary community that you've been building as well, because now we're on this road, and I think it's so valuable and so important. So tell us about this community that you are building.
Okay, yeah. So it's quite common, as you know, especially in the coaching world, that people say, oh, set up a group on Facebook and da-da-da-da-da. And I was doing that thing. I was doing the whole, okay, I've been told to do this thing. Oh, I really don't want to do this thing. Because I hate Facebook. And actually, I think large swathes of women in this age group hate Facebook. And I couldn't build a community there either, because Facebook decides what you're going to see and who's going to see it. And so it was like talking into the void. So I took the community off Facebook. It's not even on a social media platform. It's on an independent platform. It's a bit of a mouthful, so it's Menopause Anxiety Freedom. It's .uk, but you're welcome to come if you're in Australia. And so all it is, it's fledgling stages. We have, I don't know, probably not even 50 members yet. I haven't been heavily promoting it, but it's a space to come into, and you can kind of sit on the sidelines. There's content in there which is organised, so you can find it. So unlike groups on Facebook where where was that video that I really enjoyed watching? It's organised in spaces under topics, and they're not huge numbers of them. So you can find, if there was a recording of a training that you missed, or a blog that I thought was interesting, and people in the community can upload their own content. So, if you find something amazing you want to share with people, then you can put it in there. You can, it sounds like, oh, this is just like social media, but without the confines of algorithms. But the most valuable part of that community at the moment, that people seem to really value, is the virtual cafe that I run once a week, which is a bit like this podcast, except it's not just you and me. I kind of invite a guest who's got something amazing to share. But we join one another in our virtual cafe, and we have conversations. And like you and I've got my coffee and you're on a different time zone.
And I've got my wine. And we should point out that it is 7 p.m. here in Melbourne, Australia, whereas it is like 10 a.m. there in the UK. Let's just point that out so they don't think I'm a morning drinker.
And
it's Friday afternoon here, people. Just saying.
So we have the virtual cafe, and the idea is that people just come along and they can join in that conversation. And what tends to happen is, we've got some regulars who are really comfortable in that space now, and a lot will sit on the edge, and then right at the end, when we're just about to close, suddenly ask the questions. But it's a good place to connect with other people who are going through what you're going through, and you can contribute as much or as little as you like. But I want it to be a powerful space, and the reason I make the comparison with Facebook is that there's a lot of groups on Facebook that are meant to be for women going through menopause. For me, they are not great spaces. They either are filled with whinging and whining and deepening the problem, just, oh, how bad is it? Oh, mine is worse than yours. Oh God, yeah, I have that too. Like, there's some value in that, but we can sink ourselves deeper in the mire and not add any value at all. And there's that whole kind of weird misinformation thing where people are sharing stuff that really is just utter nonsense. And so I wanted a space that we could come to where you get some good value, some great people sharing good stuff and being authentic and being honest, and not trying to, I don't know, flog you a pill or a potion or whatever. Anyway, enough. Menopause Anxiety Freedom .uk.
Lovely. And we will be sharing all the links in our show notes for this podcast as well to Shirley, and also so that you can connect with the Menopause Anxiety Freedom virtual cafe, and so that people will be able to find you, which will be amazing, which is terrific. So I love everything that you stand for, Shirley, and everything that you're about. I just could talk to you for hours and hours. I think you're brilliant.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual. I could too. And I think, I apologise if I have gone off on one from time to time. It's what I do.
I love it. And that's why this is a conversational podcast, because that's it. It's just, us, me and someone else, your beautiful self today, just basically, having a chat. And I really like that. And I think that's powerful, because that's where the hard-won wisdom comes out, right?
I agree. Yeah, I hate those formulaic podcasts, and they exist, where it's there's a structure. You know what you're going to get, and someone's going to flog you something at the end, and it's not us, is it? Yeah.
No, it's not us. And I think, I'm a big believer. I actually, I am a big believer that, and I think I said this to you on your podcast, I'm not sure, but, we bring what we put out. And so I think every guest that I've had the honor of hosting on this podcast has really been so human. And yes, they've written a book, or yes, they are a life coach, or yes, they are whatever they're doing, but they bring so much of their true self to this podcast, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I think that's why it does resonate with our listeners.
Yeah, well, I think that's credit to you, actually, Sandy. That's the space you've created, so you made it possible.
Oh, thanks, Shirley. But I do think it's important. It's important, right? Now, listen, if you ever have a chance to talk to any of my really close girls, my girlfriends, who, thank the universe for these women in my life, I tell you, and I know that I'm extremely lucky to have so many close girlfriends, but, it's the same thing. We all get together and that space is open. So I think, I grew up with a whole group of girls. We're still friends to this day. I think it's quite extraordinary, but I think we unknowingly created a space for each other, and that we're able then to go out in the world and create that space for other people. So I'm hugely grateful for that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I know we're closing it, but you mentioned books, and this is nothing to do with menopause anxiety, but I just kind of want to mention it. So I have a book being published December, I think, maybe I think it's December. It's not about menopause, it's about mental health leadership in schools.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but the reason I want to mention it is because it seems like it's so, like, what's that got to do with anything? But that's a part of the point that we've been making, is this is not just about a single time in life. That book, there's so much synergy between puberty and menopause.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, that it made perfect sense to be doing that. And also it's about, the book is about intending to change the leadership of schools so that they change the way they educate young people, so that they're more empowered and more valuing of themselves. But it has to start with the people at the top. And so I just thought I'd share that. High five.
So much more amazing stuff that you keep bringing to the table, Shirley Billson. I just love you. I think that sounds phenomenal. And so you're saying it comes out either December or January?
Yeah, the publisher is Routledge. So I think they said it's December, but, they may shift their production schedule. I don't know. They tell me it's December it's coming out, but the publisher is Routledge.
I love that. Well, our podcast will clearly be out before that. So, but when it does come out, Shirley will no doubt tell me all about it. Will you, Shirley? And
I will do that.
And we will make sure that everybody knows, and we'll, replay the podcast and link the book launch to that as well, because that's really important stuff. There's a lot of our listeners who have, young kids and young teenage children going through, as you say, that stage of their life too, puberty. And even though you've written this book, obviously, for leaders from the top down, I think this sounds like a great book for parents as well. I think so, because if you're informed, it's something you can kind of beat them over the head with if necessary. Why aren't you doing this? No, I think it's true, and I think that, as we say, like, I'm so grateful that the younger generation of people coming up they're so intelligent. They are actually informing themselves, even at a very young age. They have so much information at their fingertips, and it's like guiding them to make sure they're getting the right information. Yeah. Absolutely. But as you say, that starts from the top down. As leaders, as teachers, as parents, for all of us, that's valuable.
Yeah, totally.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Shirley. Pulling something even more out of your amazing hat of, that's incredible. You're amazing. I just adore you. I'm so glad that you gave me your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's been an absolute joy, and thank you. And I wish we could do it all the time.
Well, we should do it more often. We should just. And this is the beautiful part of video chats these days. It makes the world so much smaller, doesn't it?
It does. And I hope you enjoy your lovely evening. And I know you're stuck at home because you're under lockdown, so, but...
That's okay. That's all right. I think I've got it better than some. And I think we were talking about all of this off air, we understand that you guys in the UK had huge numbers and were doing it so tough. And For your, I suppose for anyone in the UK listening to this, I was trying to explain, I get that people overseas go, oh, your numbers are so low, this is ridiculous. But our population is small and our medical system, our hospital system is much smaller as well. And that if the numbers got too high, we would be collapsing under the weight of that. So, this is what they've chosen to do. I don't know if it's right or wrong or whatever, but, we're okay. We have a roof over our head and we're safe, and we've got to, I'm vaccinated. So I'm...
and beautiful books on the shelf and wine in your glass.
I do have lots of books on my shelf and wine in my glass. So thank you so much, Shirley, for your incredible wisdom. As I said, I'll be putting up links everywhere for Shirley so everyone listening to this can connect. And I know this is going to resonate with so many of our listeners because this is the age group, right? And this is why this stuff is so important and why we're quite happy to keep shouting menopause from the rooftops.
Yay. Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks, Andy.
So thank you so much, Shirley. So great to see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.